Now that my Everyman video has become my most popular video with a whopping 2,400 views at the time of making the script, yes, I am finally using a script. It's only fair that I give it a proper sequel. With a ton of new evidence and a few new Everyman sightings in Chapter 2, this is gonna be a long video. Of course, remember to watch the original video first with a link in description and maybe a card if I remember to add one. I am so sorry if there's any annoying watermarks in this video, like a Kindmaster one, but it's the only way to make this video work. It's like higher quality, but also not higher quality because I'm using the cringe. That wasn't even in the script. Shut up. Okay. First, a quick recap of the last video. I believe that the Everyman is the knight. Everyman is an attack used by the Amalgamate Reaper bird, and outside of that, he does not get mentioned anywhere. In one attack, his head gets devoured by butterflies, and in the other attack, he vibrates and his head flies off and then regrows and flies off and regrows. The interesting thing is if you get behind him, he will block the heads from hurting you, implying that he isn't intentionally attacking you and doesn't want you, or at least Frisk, to get hurt. In the debug mode for Undertale, you can make Everyman walk off the screen and it'll say something like, "I'm out of here," but I don't know enough about the Undertale debug mode to say if this means anything, or if it's even related to Everyman, or if it's just something you can do with any attack. Everyman doesn't appear in the credits, even with the Amalgamates, despite being the fact that he is definitely not the same entity as Reaper Bird. In the files of Undertale, he's not even called the Everyman. His name is the Strange Man. But Everyman was the official name given to him by Toby Fox. In the cold room in True Lab, before you clear the fog, there are some interesting dialogues. One of them is, "There's something here, something in the shape of a man. Many people say this is Gaster, but I see no reason for Gaster to be here. It's more likely to be Everyman or Watching Man." By the way, I completely forgot Watching Man existed, and he's not a part of this script, despite the fact that he is probably gonna be related to him in some way. There's also this other dialogue. There's a few dialogues, but this is the important ones. "There's something here. It feels like a tree, ripe with delicious fruit." There's a few things that look like Everyman in Undertale, but that's just speculation. I'll talk about it later. Toby Fox himself gave Everyman this description: "Just a good guy that shows up on occasion." In Deltarune, there's a lot more stuff. In one of Jevil's attacks, there is a rare chance that one of his ducks will have an Everyman head. In the alleyway in the light world, there's a drawing of Everyman with the word Everyman, and it's in pink marker on the wall behind Alphys. Does this mean that Alphys drew it? We don't know. But that's my thought. When Sham talks about the knight, he calls him a strange knight. And when he's talking about the person with Jevil, he calls him a strange someone. Notice the usage of the word strange. There's a drawing in the unused classroom that vaguely resembles Everyman, but this was confirmed by Toby Fox to be a drawing of Gerson from his son Alvin, the one that's outside the church. In a secret room, in the secret egg room, going back and forth from the Starwalker room, there is the dialogue, "There is a man here. He offered you something," and then gives you an egg. With Everyman being a type of bird, it's possible that the egg contains a baby Everyman. The word egg in Wingdings... Wait. I completely forgot to write this part of the script. The word egg in Wingdings translates to the movements that a knight makes in chess. This could mean that whatever's in the egg, or whatever gave you the egg, is the knight. But in all honesty, I think this is the dumbest thing, and out of everything, this is the most likely that is just a coincidence. Okay, now with all that old stuff, we can get to new evidence and actual theory stuff. While most people believe the strange men to be Gaster, it just feels too easy to say, because like everything is Gaster. The strange someone is most likely Gaster, since Sham says darker yet darker. But why? But Gaster being the knight is not as likely. For one thing, if they were the same person, why would Sham refer them differently? If they were the same, unless of course they were hiding their identity. It's like one is a strange knight and then a strange someone. If it was the knight, why wouldn't Sham just say the knight? Again. Also, Sham says the knight has a strange son, though it could be a grammar error when it was referring to the king and lancer. Gaster, while not confirmed, is believed to be the dad of Sans and Papyrus. But what about Everyman? Gaster and Everyman are definitely related. We don't know how, though. If they are related, who is the son and who is the dad? Most likely... No. Also, it's more likely that the son is not a blood son, but a creation, if we're talking about Gaster. Even still, we don't know who made who. One thing I'd like to point out here is, even though I said that it's not blood related, if it is, Everyman does look pretty young, while Gaster looks like an old man. But I don't think that's very solid to go off of. Okay. We know Jevel knows quite a bit about the knight and has probably seen him. It would make sense why he has an Everyman attack if he's seen the knight. The graffiti, though, is very interesting. It means some Lightner has seen Everyman and drew a picture of him. I'll try not to repeat too much of what I said in the last video, but I'll just say there's no way Everyman is an amalgamate, because the amalgamates can't exist in this world. Now let's move on to Chapter 2 for a minute. There's 2 new Everyman encounters. The first one is an ad in the pop-up fight. I've seen some people say Everyman is oversimplified because, his design, because he is just an attack. But here, the other ads are much more detailed when Everyman's is still the exact same sprite. One more thing, the pop-ups use a bird attack that looks suspiciously similar to Everyman. I mean, what does pop-up have to do with birds anyway? Sure, it's just a bird with one eye, but I think it's intentional, because the Swatchlings use a bird attack that is almost exactly the same, but with a different, non-Everyman looking bird. Okay, ignore that part for a minute again. Going back to the thing about the sprite. This confirms that Everyman looked exactly the same in Undertale, the Dark World, and the Light World. So Everyman is not a Darkner or a Lightner. He's something else completely. I say this because every Lightner we've seen that goes into the Dark World has had their appearance completely change for no good reason. Everyman stays exactly the same. And some characters have their names swapped around, but we don't really know too much about that. We still don't know what the heck Rousey's deal is. Let's break for a moment and talk about something completely different. The Google definition of Everyman. The first definition is a simple, average, ordinary, plain, or whatever, but modest man. That's the interesting part, is they specifically point out that it's a nice person. It's a random average individual on the street, whatever, but specifically a nice individual, which is exactly the same of what Toby said. Just a strange man who shows up on occasion, whatever. Or no, just a good guy. Anyway. And the second definition is a stock character that usually takes the role of the protagonist. Again, I forgot to even finish the script here. What the frick? The first one would fit the description Toby gave. A strange... Or maybe I didn't forget. I just didn't want to put it because I'm lazy. I just said that, though. Anyway. A popular theory for Everyman is that he's like a stick figure for monsters. It would make sense with how the dummy and the dolls in Toriel's house look like Everyman. But the dolls, in particular... I have not seen barely any people talk about how the dummy looks like Everyman, but I've seen a lot of people say how the dolls look like Everyman. But I see that less because the dolls are lacking the most Everyman thing, the long nose. Does it matter? No. Even if this doll is or isn't Everyman, it, like, means nothing, basically. But I will say that the dolls also appear in Asgore's house, and in Asgore's house, because everything is black and white, or just white in general, they look even more like Everyman. While we are talking about Undertale, let's say one thing. If Everyman isn't an amalgamate, then why does he even appear there? This is because Reaper Bird is an entity made of night-type characters, minus Astigmatism, who kind of doesn't really represent anything. Just a whatever. But the Whimsalot and the Final Frogget... Well, actually... I mean, if you think about it, Whimsalot's the only one that truly represents a knight. One detail in Deltarune is... Blech. Am I skipping forward? No, I'm not. Now, one detail in Deltarune that stuck out to me is how the king's cape turns into a butterfly and then flies away in the end. And who else uses butterflies? Everyman does. And the king is devoted to the knight. Completely. Sure, the Whimsums and Whimsalots also do, and the Reaper Bird is made of a Whimsalot, but the butterflies that Everyman uses are called Strange Man butterflies, meaning they belong to him and not the amalgamate itself. Even further, the butterflies he uses are pointier than the ones from Whimsum, just like the king's cape. When I first read this detail, I was blown away. When I first saw this, when someone brought this to my attention, I was stoked. Like, why would Toby Fox even create a second butterfly sprite if it was just for the Whimsum again? It doesn't make sense. So it's gotta be this. Unless there's some other reason, but I can't think of one. On this topic, what about the head that flies off? What if the head is actually a helmet? There are a lot of bird-shaped knight helmets, but this one's less likely to me. Because, like, why is he vibrating, and then why is it flying off, and why is it magic, and why does another one grow in its place? Helmets don't grow on people's heads. Still, going back to Deltarune, I've seen multiple people claim Everyman is in the Spamton fight, but I went through a whole sprite dump and looked at every sprite in the whole game, and there is no Everyman in Spamton fight. That is a hoax. Do not believe it. Maybe it's not a hoax. Maybe it's just people remembering wrong. I mean, Spamton does have a really long nose, and some of his sprites can look pretty vague, and you could say that they might be Everyman sprites. But moving on. The final Everyman appearance is in the Queen fight, during the attack with the internet users. It can be either the normal one or the drama one. And, by the way, in the drama one, nothing happens with him. He does not get angry. What a Chad. This isn't in the script either, shut up. Okay. Can be seen rarely, but unlike the rest, Everyman does not have a comment attack. Finally, there's one more detail. In the traffic section, in the overworld, there's one car that you can interact, and it says something along the lines of, there are cars everywhere, and there's even a man in this one. He waves at you. And then after interacting with it, you can never do it ever again. But what I didn't know is this only happens if you have collected the egg. Meaning, or at least very much heavily 99% implying, that this is the same person that gave us the egg. Now tell me, do you think Gaster, the royal scientist, shattered across time and space, would be a random dude in a car? No. But it fits Everyman's description perfectly. Now you might be also thinking, well, if Everyman is just some average good person, why would he be the main antagonist? Now let me remind you that in Undertale, a flower with a face was the main antagonist, who claimed to be a good person giving you a tutorial. Now let's look at all the Everyman encounters again. Do any of these really say ordinary, normal, nice man to you? In a true lab with disturbing experiments in an amalgamate fight, the attack with Jevil, who who has been corrupted by knowledge outside his world of how the world is a video game in a creepy back alleyway next to the person that was a scientist working in the True Lab in an alternate universe in Undertale. But I already talked about that in the first video. An ad that represents a computer virus, which could also be breaking the fourth wall. Heck, just a pop-up fight in general is just one big fourth wall break, because it even crashes when you get too many pop-ups. The only attack that represents random guy, or the only appearance that has random guy written on it, is the crowd in the Queen's fight. But even still, a little detail is this attack plays immediately after Queen mentions the knight. The attack obviously represents an internet celebrity and then mindless fans who would be saying random stuff that doesn't make any sense because they're brainless. And that is what the attack does. They say stupid things like wow, not really, but just random two words mixed together that don't make sense in grammar. So wouldn't this attack make a lot more sense if it played when she's talking about making Lightners happy? And the biggest problem with this theory that you guys have probably been waiting for me to talk about, isn't Kris supposed to be the knight? At the end of Deltarune Chapter 2, Kris creates a dark fountain and everyone freaked out, thinking Kris was the knight, and I can't blame people for thinking that. But for me, the giveaway that Kris was being the knight was the knight's blade that the Queen shows. Looks just like Kris's knife. Now, keep in mind this is a hologram created by the Queen. But I mean, why would she imagine it as that knife if there was no evidence for it? Anyway, move on. Even still, there's a few really big issues with this, and now we're going to talk about why Kris isn't the knight. First up, Queen said if anyone was determined enough, they could make a dark fountain. Even Birdly was going to do it. So, Kris making one just means that Kris was really determined. And who says he was making fountains before? This could be his first fountain, because Susie was like, the knight is making these fountains. But is that really a bad thing? Because now a lot more interesting stuff happens. And then he's like, yeah, let's make a fountain. It's like, yeah. What the heck did I do? So yeah, Kris could just be really determined to make a fountain. And second thing, this is probably the biggest one in my eyes, because that one is like, yeah, sure, but it could be going the other way. It's like, it's just, it could be, but it could not be, but it could be, but it could not be, and there's nothing you can do to prove one or the other. This one, on the other hand, is a big deal. The knight is confirmed to be male. Obviously, Everyman is male. He's literally got man in his name. And there is no way that Toby Fox would ever confirm Kris's gender. For frick's sake, Toby even confirmed Kris goes by they, them pronouns. So, like, yeah. Whereas Frisk and Kara are still a mystery. Now, what about the strange sun thing? Or third, the strange sun thing. Kris is like, what, 16? And definitely does not have a son. Cannot have a son. Now, going with the creation idea, who is Kris's creation then? The only thing I can think of is Rouse, but even that is just a theory. And Rouse says that he's a prince, but is clearly not in power of any kind. Even still, Rouse isn't on the bad guy's side, so it doesn't make sense anyway. Again, that line could be a grammar error, but the game got updated and it's still there. So, is it then? We still don't know. Maybe Toby Fox didn't even know. You could make the argument that we just haven't seen the Kris's creation yet, but that's a pretty bad argument. Now, everyone there... No, wait, what the heck am I saying? Now, there is one way both Kris and Everyman could be the knight. Remember this... Oops. Gosh dang it. Can I just not click on stupid things? Remember the second definition of Everyman? how Everyman is a protagonist. Guess what? Kris is a protagonist of Deltarune. So what if Everyman is some sort of envisionment of Kris, or some form? Like, it could be some kind of shadow of Kris. We still don't know anything about Everyman. We don't know what they are, why they look like a bird, how they're connected to Gaster. Nothing. The name itself is a big mystery. Everyman. Could Everyman be every man? I know this sounds kind of stupid, but like, I mean, there's still a ton of evidence for Gaster being the knight. Like, the fact that the egg is also seen in Papyrus's room, and the fact that the second egg in Deltarune, which I didn't even mention in this, clearly references the "What do you two think?" in entry 17. And there's also a little bit of evidence for Azrael being the knight, but that is a less likely theory with less evidence, and it's a theory that was proposed by MatPat, which makes me spite it more. Screw you, MatPat. This isn't in the script either. Please, stick to the script. Okay. But we don't know what Gaster is either. Gaster could also be related to Kris. Heck, Gaster might just be in Kris's mind. Other than in the Dark World. But the Dark World could also be, if Kris is the knight, then the Dark World could have been entirely created by Kris. But that's dumb. There's no evidence for that. Maybe Everyman and Gaster could even be one and the same. They're both referred to as strange and men. Just man. Heck, the song for the tree is literally just called Man. It seems kind of stupid, but it also makes a lot of sense when you just start thinking about it. How all these things are just referring man, 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 mystery man, every man, strange man. Okay, we're finally at the end. I don't think there's anything else to talk about for now. A lot of the new evidence that I've brung up that isn't related to Chapter 2 came from a theory post by a dude named VGFM, and I highly recommend you check it out if you want to go even deeper down the rabbit hole. There's still so much stuff I could mention, or there's still a little bit more, not so much more, but a little bit more. But if I mention that, that would just be stealing VGFM's theory, so read it yourself. I'll probably provide a link, if it'll work this time. In the old video, I said if Everyman ended up being the knight, I would faceplant into the ground, but now, I'm kind of feeling the opposite. There's just, if Everyman isn't the knight, then what the heck was all this evidence for? Was it put there, like, just to make us think that? Or is it just a complete coincidence and we're all idiots? But, you know what? I'll probably just faceplant into the ground either way. So look forward to that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist of this, because I also mention Everyman in a different video. Okay. I think that's everything. End the video. Stop being awkward. End the video. Like and subscribe.